Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and we're here to talk about all the things going on in the Big Ten. It's another basketball episode, and we got a lot to talk about. There were some big wins, some terrible losses for some Big Ten teams, and a lot going on. We got our man Sonny here to talk about the big Illinois win that happened, what was it, last night? I mean, it's all a blur, all right? Illinois is on fire right now. Things are looking fantastic for them, and I know Sonny is fired up to talk about it. And Indiana had a huge close win against Michigan. I know Burke is excited about that, so we're going to get into that. But before we get too far into it, let's go ahead and introduce our guys. Tell you where you can find them at. Sonny, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell people where they can find you at.
Sure, I'm Sonny. I'm a part of the Big Banter Network, just like this show that you're watching is. You can find me at the Illini class, or sorry, at Illinicast. We do a YouTube show. You can find us on all the podcasts. We have a couple episodes a week. Now the basketball season has started, and Illini Nation is pretty rabid. We're trying to throw out a new episode every day almost. So please tune in.
That's awesome. Yeah, get your Illini fill over there. Burke, go to tell people about you, where they can find you at.
All right, Burke White. I am the Indiana basketball representative here on the Big Banter Network, and you can find me everywhere at Often Daunted. You can listen to the podcast wherever you get your favorites, and yeah, just glad to be here on the Big Ten Huddle, ready to talk some Big Ten basketball.
Very good. Before we talk about that, let's go ahead and remind you to please like and subscribe. We appreciate that. That gets more of it stuff out there. And I got to tell you guys, listen, there are so many like SEC shows out there and all those things. Like they're killing us right now. We don't talk enough Big Ten. There's not enough podcasts. There's not enough shows. Okay, and you have seen the SEC bias in the college football playoffs. So if you guys want the Big Ten to start getting some respect, like, subscribe, tell your friends, let them know, help them, help them, whatever you want to say. All right, tell people about the Big Ten Huddle. We cover everything Big Ten basketball and football here. And on top of that, please do check out Big Banter Sports, bigbantersports.com. It's where you can find all three of our podcasts and more for all your Big Ten media needs. All right, let's get into the games, guys. Our first game, Illinois 98, Florida Atlantic 89. Dusty May was going through it because Brad Underwood gave it to him. Terrence Shannon Jr. went off. Coleman Hawkins, he didn't have any like gaudy numbers or anything, but I thought he was playing very well. Was it Domask, Sonny? I mean, dude just went stupid. I mean, it was a crazy game. I loved watching it. It was a lot of fun. Sonny, what were your thoughts?
What you just said has kind of been the theme of the season. You know, the team has been fun to watch. You can tell the guys like each other. Brad Underwood, you know, he's had a different strategy almost every offseason for the last 3 years. And this year you can tell, you know, he's kind of gotten tired of, you know, we've had the top recruiting class in the Big Ten the last couple of years, and what's come of it? You know, he's kind of realized that, you know, having four, scholarships and giving it to four stars doesn't always necessarily translate onto the court, because one guy gets unhappy, they transfer mid-season, or, you know, at the end of the season. They've made an adjustment. They've decided to bring veterans in. Marcus Domask was a Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year from Southern Illinois. We brought in Justin Harmon, guys who are good culture guys and guys who have played in, you know, conference championships before. Guys who are basically, you know, just they understand what it takes to win as a team. And I'm telling you, you know, we've obviously Illinois has been pretty successful the last couple seasons, but this team is a little different just because you see the culture. The guys like playing with each other. You kind of saw it last night. This is, you know, we're in the middle of a pretty tough stretch for Illinois. We went to Rutgers on Saturday. Brad Underwood is 1-5 at the rack. And I don't know if you guys discussed the game, I'm sure you did, but it was pretty much a dominating from opening tip till the end of the game. Rutgers made a run at the end of the first half, but otherwise, you know, it was a pretty, you know, it's not something that we usually see when we go to the rack. The game against FAU, you know, the 11th rated team in the country, Final Four last year in Madison Square Garden. They returned everybody from that Final Four team. And, you know, we just had two guys. You know, I gave credit to Brad Underwood in my instant reaction episode yesterday. He basically gave the ball to Terrence Shannon and Marcus Domask and basically said that they don't have anybody that can guard you two. So go at it. And Domask went 15 for 21. I think Shannon was something like, I think he only missed 4 shots himself. I don't recall his shot selection off the top of my head, but it was a convincing win. You know, our defense is as good as there is in the country. And for me, it's just nice that, you know, people are talking about Illinois basketball again.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Illinois basketball is the talk of a lot of people right now. I've heard people even saying, you know, can Illinois battle Purdue for the top spot? I mean, Illinois has the size across the board. Now they don't have the big man to obviously be able to compete with a Zach Edey, but with as big of a lineup as they had, and I said it going into the season, my concern was the point guard, right? I was concerned that there was no real true ball handler on this team. Now Terrence Shannon Jr. can do that, but I still had a question about that. I was still like, is that really the role he wants to have? But he's doing it. He's doing a good job with it. Coleman Hawkins, to his credit, he's been doing a pretty good job of handling the ball too, especially with his size. That's really impressive. I just think there's a lot to like about this Illinois team right now. Top 15 in KenPom. They passed Florida Atlantic. I think Florida Atlantic 16 now. Illinois 14. So just a whole lot of good stuff going on for Illinois. And I can't sing the Illinois praises enough because I wasn't singing them enough in the preseason. So now I feel like I got to make up for it, right? Burke, what were your thoughts on this game?
This Domask kid, like, what the hell was he doing on the Salukis for so long? Like, just watching him, I have to imagine that the Illinois fans are over the moon relieved with what this guy is bringing. I mean, he has to be such a far more reliable piece to your team, other than that caffeine addict who had just left the squad. And like the career highs right here for Domask and Terrence Shannon. I saw a stat that was the first time that 2 players on the same team combined for more than 30 points while shooting better than 70% from the floor since January 1999. Like when your team is shooting at that clip, when you have 2 guys doing that, not just one, if you have one of those guys, there's a good chance you're winning that game. They had 2 of them. That like, you are unbeatable if that's the case. And yeah, just a great performance by the Illini, and they have every reason to be rabid as a fan base right now because there's a lot to love in that squad. That being said, I firmly believe the Hoosiers have a shot. I always do. But this Illinois team looks like true contenders right now for the Big Ten.
It's one of those where, like,
go ahead, sorry.
One of the weaknesses that I perceived coming into the season, JR, you nailed it on the head. We don't have a point guard. And, Brett Underwood tried to convince everyone that we had a point guard coming into the season. We don't. We're trying to basically make do without one and play without one. But what I wanted to see was that second guy, because we knew we had Terrence Shannon Jr. And we know, now that he knows it's his team this year, I think he deferred a little bit too much to Mr. Caffeine last year. This year, he knows he's the best player on the court almost every time he steps on the hardwood, and he's playing like it. But what's always worried me is who is going to be that second guy, because it's a long grinding season, especially in the Big Ten. So to count on Terrence Shannon to carry the load every single night in, night out, that would have been tough. And, Brad Underwood, again, he's assembled a good team of role players. I think we're a very deep team. We're arguably the biggest team in the Big Ten outside, Purdue with the one monster that they have. But, we're talking about Purdue. It kind of reminds me of, in the mid 90s, like the Bulls, we signed like 3 centers just for fouls on, Shaq. And Illinois kind of has that. We have Hawkins, we have Danger, we have Amani Hansberry, we have Guerrier. We have a lot of, obviously Edey's going to do whatever Edey does. But I think if anybody can somewhat match up against them, it's going to be Illinois. And
yeah, on that, I mean, that's exactly what Northwestern did to Purdue. They threw big goobers at them until Purdue folded.
Well, and I think you saw a great example of it in this game. I mean, if we're being honest, this Golden kid, he played 19 minutes and had 23 points. I mean, he was tearing it up when he was in there. But Illinois just had the wherewithal to just throw big men at him and get him in foul trouble. And then eventually he got out of the game. Like I said, only 19 minutes in there and he fouled out. So, I mean, I think this is the evolution that we kind of wanted to see with Illinois. I think you're exactly right about Terrence Shannon Jr., Sonny. I don't know if I've seen a better wing this year in college basketball than Terrence Shannon Jr., the way he's playing right now. He is the best wing, not just in the Big Ten. He is the best wing in college basketball right now, and he knows it, and he's playing like it. And that's the most important thing to me. But the second most important thing is I feel like there's a bit more strategy to this team last year, or this year, that we didn't see last year. Not to say anything bad about last year, but I just didn't feel like there was that kind of strategy to take on some of these guys like Golden and Zach Edey possibly this year as well. I feel like it's there now. I feel like they're being really strategic with how they use Dane Danger. I feel like they have a lot of big men who can do a lot of different things. I mean, what? 3 of their guys had 3 fouls or more in the starting lineup. And then Harmon, little guard, he had 4 fouls, but none of them ever fouled out. So, I mean, they're playing it really well. They're really strategic with it. I am just overall very impressed with this Illinois team. They've answered all of my questions so far. And the only question I have left is, can they beat Purdue? And that's the big one. Sonny, can they do it?
Can they? Yeah. I think if nothing else, we're kind of proving to Purdue that they're not going to run away with the conference like they did last year. We'll make them sweat it out a little bit. I still think Purdue's the best team just because, and I think Burke will agree with me here. Like, I've never seen a big man be able to get away with just elbows and overpowering other guys and refs not calling fouls on him like Edey does. So I think with that factor, Purdue will still probably win the conference, but this team, this Illinois team, like what again separates them from last year is last year right around this time you heard grumblings of certain a 5-star freshman point guard who was struggling. He wasn't really enjoying himself. He was getting into fights in practice, and then it was around now when Sky Clark decided just to leave the team. We just got wind that he cleared out his apartment and he was gone. And this year doesn't have that problem. Again, it's a difference between bringing a 5-star, talent who's been to 4 different high schools in 4 years, as opposed to a Marcus Domask who's just been the best player on a very good team in the Missouri Valley Conference. These guys they enjoy playing together. They bought into Brad Underwood's defense. Brad Underwood teams always have good defenses. This year, they're playing at an elite level. And so, whether we're going to win the Big Ten, maybe not, but I don't think Brad Underwood cares about that anymore. I think we've already done it. We've won the Big Ten regular season. We won the Big Ten conference tournament. I think now Brad Underwood understands that his legacy is about getting into that second weekend in March.
Yeah, and I think so for sure. And I think that's kind of what's hanging up most teams in the Big Ten right now is, can you take that next step? We've seen teams battle. We've seen coaches be able to figure things out in the Big Ten and play better in some years after they have a down year. But can they battle? Can they make those things happen? So we got our friend Frank in the chat, and he wants to correct a few things for you there, Burke. He says, I think it was more of Northwestern far above baseline than Purdue fouling. He also let us know that Edey got fouled every possession before catches the ball. Have you seen the scars on his arm? And all I have to say about that, Frank, is I do think we addressed that in the podcast, the last one with Mike and Justin. But I think Burke's point still stands, is like they were strategic about throwing guys in there at him. And I know we can argue all day about the Edey officiating. Does Edey get fair fouls? I mean, it's all about Purdue fans saying Edey never gets the call, and then it's all about non-Purdue fans saying Edey always gets the call. And it's one of those ones where it's like, and I said it when I talked to Russ about it, I was like, I don't know if there's any right call, because he's just so big, he's so imposing that it's almost like, can you really do anything to not get a foul or to try to get a foul? I don't know. But it's like interesting for sure. What you say, Burke?
It's like don't bring up another man's podcast on another man's podcast. But Mark Titus was talking on his show about just Zach Edey and how he gets fouls. And I thought it was a genuinely good point where he was just like, it is kind of like offensive line officiating, where
that's true.
You could call a foul on the defender every possession that Zach Edey is getting the ball. You could also call a foul potentially on Zach Edey every time he has the ball.
Right.
It's just a manner of just the degree to which it was committed that they can make these calls on.
Yeah, and it was either Russ or Nick that made that point as well, because he was saying like there's a foul every time down the court, whether it's on Edie, whether it's on the other guy. There is something going on that's a foul, and it's just about the refs picking and choosing.
He's a true game. He's a true game breaker. He really is.
He really is.
And to his credit,
I agree with both your points. Yes, Edie gets fouled a lot, and he also, my original point, he fouls other people a lot. But to my knowledge, Zach Edey's never fouled out in a game in his entire career. If you notice, a lot of these games that Purdue plays in, the guy that Edey's guarding is the one with 4 fouls midway through the second half. It's the defensive team that's getting called more often than Edey is, that has to regroup, and all of a sudden the backup has to come in and guard Edey. So that's where the frustrations get. I get it. I had Kofi on my team, right? Kofi, he got hammered a lot too. So I know when guys are just bigger going against a lot smaller guys, that smaller guys have to slap and do this and that. What I'm saying is, take a look at that foul discrepancy at the end of every single Purdue game and tell me who's got 2 or 3 fouls and how many of the bigs on the other team fouled out. So that's kind of my point.
Yeah, no, and Frank said here, he said Northwestern has the size and depth to continue to give him trouble. Both Illinois and IU will be able to do the same. I agree. I think Illinois has some big guys. I don't know if they're quite as, Illinois. I think Indiana has some big guys. I don't know if they're quite as deep with their big guys as Illinois is, but they definitely have the big guys who can be able to give him trouble. I'm more concerned about Kel'el Ware's his weight and his girth to be able to withstand Edey rather than his overall height and size and things like that. So, but it'll be an interesting matchup for sure. Kel'el Ware played great against Indiana, which I think, this Maryland game is still not over. We got 5 seconds left, but that's probably going to take 5 minutes to resolve itself. So let's go ahead and move on to Indiana beats Michigan 78-75. Came down to the wire. Oh, it was heartbreaking. Doug McDaniels missed some key free throws there at the end of the game. They had one last shot. Kel'el Ware with the huge block on the inbound pass. It was honestly a fantastic game to watch. Both teams really wanted it. It was going back and forth. I had a lot of fun watching. I didn't really have a dog in the fight, but I enjoyed watching it. Burke, what were your thoughts?
Hey, the vibes are good in Bloomington, boys. Like we are getting it rolling. This team is finally starting to hit its stride here, and there isn't a better time to do so than the first 2 games of the Big Ten. I mean, just their ability. Like, Michigan is going to be a team that lives and dies with the abilities of Doug McDaniel and Olivier Nkamhoua. And the fact that the Hoosiers were able to hold Doug McDaniel to 3 for 14 from the floor, that's a credit to Gabe Cupps. Dude. Yeah, that's a credit to Gabe Cupps, man.
He's the dude that shows up at the YMCA that everybody hates because he is so annoying with how he plays.
I mean, you really could see that Doug McDaniel was able to outpace him just with Doug's ability to get to the line as much as he did in that game. But just Gabe's ability to battle him, just with Xavier out, Gabe being asked to do so much. It was just awesome to see. And then just Kel'el just is hitting. Kel'el is absolutely Kel'el. He is Superman. Like, what he has been doing through the start of this season, the entire organization of like Oregon's basketball program needs reviewed. It needs Dana Altman needs brought to justice, because how is he doing this year? Like, how was his motor a question? It was the only thing that Indiana was able to rely on in those first stretch of just non-conference escape jobs we were doing. And he's been unbelievable. Like, in this game, he wasn't the highest producer. Like, Malik carried the load with 15. But it was him on every single impact play. Like, every play that defined the game, Kel'el had a part in. And with Xavier out, this one was interesting because the Hoosiers didn't have their primary ball handler. They didn't have their like cut to the basket option. And honestly, the distribution, the overall production, it all turned out for the better. Like, the Hoosiers were looking to spread the ball, share the ball. And going through it, it was like the Hoosier point totals in that game: 15, 11, 13, 2 for Gabe Cupps. Hey, we had his defensive efforts there. 9, 6, 6, 8, 8. That is the point totals for anyone who touched the floor in that game. That it was just it was just contributions by just the entire squad.
Oh my gosh, Penn State just tied it up. Sorry. No, Gabe Cupps, he had 1 shot and 2 points.
Yeah.
I tell you, I love watching Gabe Cupps play. He just plays with so much energy and so much fire. And I was really concerned when Xavier Johnson was going to be out for a little while. You know, I was concerned about what were they going to do at the guard position. Do they have any answers there? I mean, their big men are the answers. If you just look at the score, you know, the box score, you don't see the impact that Kel'el Ware had on this game. I mean, there were a lot of things that he did that helped this team out in a lot of different ways. I mean, he only played 24 minutes, but you felt his presence every time he was on the court, and he was making things happen every single time, along with Malik Renew. I think that is a good combo, one of the best big men combo in the Big Ten right now that we're not that I don't think we're giving enough credit to. Obviously, there are other really good ones as well, but they're evolving into one of the better ones, and it's just really, really fun to watch. Sonny, what are your thoughts on this game?
I think the stark difference between these two programs is, you know, Indiana players, they seem to, you know, be excited. The fan base seems to be excited with Mike Woodson and the recruiting classes he's bringing in and where the program is moving forward. Whereas Michigan fans, I think, have started to see the warts on Juwan Howard and whoever is coaching in his place in particular games. You know, I saw a record. He's something like 1-12 or 1-13 in one possession games. He can bring talent in, but he's been there long enough now that you can see that, like, I don't know if the charm is getting stale now. You know, it's like it's almost like, no, I wouldn't even say that. No, Harbaugh and Michigan, they were always winning 9-10 games. So let me disregard that comparison.
Right.
But I just think, with Howard, yeah, he had a couple of nice Sweet 16 runs, but I think we've already kind of seen what his ceiling is. And we're seeing it night in and night out now that almost every given night he can get out-coached by the better coaches in the Big Ten. And, Michigan basketball Twitter is kind of fun to pay attention to just because, they're a rabid group and they're starting to see that, it might be time to move on.
Yeah, no, and we talked about that, what was it, 2 episodes ago with Juwan Howard, where it's like, at what point do you move on? Because this is the struggle of having a legendary player become your coach, is you don't want to move on because of everything he's done. It's kind of like Bill Belichick with the Patriots right now, right? They want to fire Bill Belichick because he's not doing a very good job. They just lost, 6-0? I mean, it's not looking good in New England right now. It's kind of the same thing with Michigan. They're getting the talent. There are reasons to keep Juwan Howard around. He is a former legendary player, but he's, like you said, Sonny, he's getting out-coached almost every single night. I mean, there are Big Ten coaches that are just better coaches than him, and it's really hard for the fan base. Burke, do you foresee...
in regards to the coaching, really quick, I just want to pile on that.
That's what I was going to ask about. Go ahead.
No, usually I would think that Mike Woodson wouldn't be able to be like an in-game general to beat him in that regard, but Mike Woodson has taken strides this season in that game, especially. Like, it looks like he is making adjustments in the way he's going to coach this team. The team isn't forcing anything. You can tell by our shot selection that's definitely the case. But it was just, he was working on this platoon subbing system initially out of the gate of this season. I'm hoping that was just him being like, lesser competition. Let's see who I'm going to build my roster out with. But he just knocked that off, which since then, I mean, the Hoosiers have been able to keep an offensive rhythm finally. And I mean, the way he had that team ready to defend Michigan, the way they did at the end of this game, like, he had them prepared to make sure that Doug McDaniel wasn't going to be the one getting an opportunity to take a, like, better than most chances it was going in heave to tie the game up and send it to overtime. Like, I'm so proud with what he's been able to do this season alone in his advancements in his own coaching philosophies.
No, yeah, you see Mike Woodson grow as a coach. I think when he came in, he really had an NBA mentality, and kind of some of the same stuff that Juwan is struggling with right now, and we've seen him evolve. We've seen him. I mean, we've always seen Mike Woodson be able to develop players and be the guy to make that happen. But we are seeing a bit of a change this season so far, and it is refreshing to see for an IU program that they just struggled with Tom Crean and Archie Miller, and now they have a legendary player as a coach now who's doing a good job, and it's really nice to see. So, Sonny, you have any thoughts about Mike Woodson and his coaching before we move on?
I mean, not particularly. Like, obviously, Indiana's built what I think is as good of a front court as anyone in the conference has. I wouldn't put him in the upper tier of in-game coaching, but I think that's kind of what Burke is saying. I haven't watched as much Indiana basketball, but as long as he's progressing a little bit, all it takes is if Indiana's leapfrog Michigan. I've been there. When we first hired Underwood, we were at the bottom of the Big Ten. So hiring a guy, you just want him to slowly elevate you year by year into different tiers in the Big Ten. And it looks like, at least the couple of Indiana guys I talked to are, very happy with, the trajectory that Woodson has Indiana at.
Yeah, I don't know how you can't be happy right now. I mean, there's a lot of talented players there, and Mike Woodson's doing a good job. I mean, don't they have another 5-star or something coming in, Burke?
Oh, yeah, Liam McNeely. And
that's right.
There were some rumblings regarding Derek Queen, and I think a bunch of Maryland fans are upset right now. But I don't read into that too much because I've been hurt before. So
don't hurt me again.
Yeah, but hey, before we get off this game, just want to say your pick for freshman of the year, Mackenzie Mbako, starting to find his stride. Yes. He's starting to figure it out. Last 3 outings, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 13 points, 7 rebounds, 11 points, 4 rebounds. That was after just a dud of a start. But we got him rolling. This front court is firing.
And I think the main thing with Mackenzie Mbako right now is he's not hunting that 3-point shot as much as he was early in the season. It almost felt like he was like, I got to be this 3-point threat. I got to be this 3-point shooter. And I think eventually Mike Woodson just told the guys, like, stop shooting threes. We can't do it. Just take it if they give it to you, but just stop. I mean, there were, 3 for 9 in this game? I mean, how many games are you going to see, especially an IU team shoot less than 10 3-pointers? I mean, it was crazy, but he went 1 for 2 from the 3-point arc, and I'm glad to see him focusing on scoring the way that he has been able to for a long time, and not focusing on that 3-pointer as much. So he's definitely
I think the Hoosiers in that game scored 1 less 3-pointer than Michigan, but took 9 less, something like that. So it's just just the Hoosiers taking the shots that make sense for them now.
Right. I mean, in basketball today, you have individual players taking 9 3-pointers.
Yeah.
In a game, it's a contrast to where the game is going.
Yeah, it's old school. We're gonna switch it up on you, but hey, I mean it's resulting in wins, so we'll just keep doing it until it falls off.
Do it till it breaks,
Yeah.
Dylan wanted to let us know that the Boulder Express dogs are up in here, so making sure that
best behavior.
Best behavior up here. But hey, Frank has some nice things to say. Really positive about Mike Woodson's coaching last night. That's really good. And then look at this. Mackenzie Mbako had a clutch free throw last night too. You're correct, Frank. He just 2 for 2 with free throws. Did a great job. I just don't have enough good things to say about this IU team with being able to win a close game like that. Obviously, like we said, Michigan has their struggles with their coach, those kind of things. But it was a good thing to see for IU and Mike Woodson and the rest of them. So, guys, I was going to try to get to this Maryland-Penn State game, but they're in overtime now. It looks like Maryland probably will pull it out. Less than 10 minutes left. They're up by 5. Or less than 2 minutes left, sorry. Up by 5, but we'll see how that goes. And as soon as that one's done, we'll get to that. So let's go ahead and talk about what our Boiler Express friends want us to talk about. Purdue wins 87-68 over Iowa. Iowa looked like the little brother in this game that was just doing his absolute best to play with the big brother, but big brother just decided in this game there was no way little brother was going to win. Burke, this will make it the second podcast in a row that you'll probably have to say nice things about Purdue, but I'm sure it helps that Purdue was just in the chat saying nice things about Indiana. So what were some of your thoughts on this game, Burke?
Hilarious start for Iowa. That was insane. That first half was embarrassing for that squad. But I mean, Zach, it was just Purdue finding their footing after
Yeah.
a shocking loss in
They were
Northwestern.
mad.
I mean, yeah, it was a lot of the same from them, but what they do often works. So, yeah, just Peyton Sanford laboring through 3 for 10 from the floor in that game. If he isn't able to like sink his shots in tandem with Crick like night after night, they are going to be struggling. And
And that's just kind of the
yeah.
Iowa team. If the offense isn't there, what is there? You know, I mean, yes, they scored 68 points, but like that's like Maryland putting up 40 for Iowa, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
Purdue bullied the hell out of them in this one. Really,
they did. They did.
the second half was, I think, about the same amount of points for each team, but
I think
it was
44.
just Purdue
I think
mailing it
Iowa
in.
won the second half by 2
Yeah.
points.
But I mean, when you get up by 21 points and a half, I guess you could have just mail in an entire 20 minutes of the game. So
Yeah.
good for them, though.
Sonny, what were your thoughts?
I mean, it just seemed like we kind of kicked off the show talking about it, that maybe the players, the coaches kind of read on Twitter all the here we go again with the Purdue team after that Northwestern game, and I knew Purdue minus 12.5 at home was going to be the lock of the season for me, and it very well was. I made a very sizable bet for that Iowa game. It's Iowa's just historically never played well in Mackey. Not that a lot of teams do, but if you take a look at the last few games, I mean, they've been getting blown up constantly. Purdue's just they're the class of the conference right now, and just talking about Iowa real quick. You were saying what you were saying, JR, and it just cracks me up. Like, is there any program that has such a stark difference between their football and basketball team than Iowa? Like, for the past decade, Iowa football is all about defense and let's see if we can get to 10. Whereas Iowa basketball is the complete opposite. It's always, the best offensive team in the Big Ten, but one that just didn't play defense. It's just, if you could kind of find a middle ground between the two teams, they'd have a bunch of conference championships by now.
Yeah, that would be a deadly team.
Just put Phil Parker on the Iowa basketball staff, and I'm sure he'll figure out some defense for that team.
And hire Fran McCaffrey as the offense coordinator.
There you go.
Hey, after I was done ragging on Iowa, I still want to say they are the only team that Mike Woodson has left to beat. So I do give them that credit. So anyone listening, hey, you got me there, but we're coming for you.
Well, if Peyton Sanford goes 3 for 10 again, I think you might.
We have good chances if that's the case.
If that's the case. Zach Edey, 9 for 10, 7 for 9 on free throw. If your big man gets fouled as much as Zach Edey does and goes 7, there's no answer. There is no answer if your big man is able to shoot nearly 70%, over 70% from the line, getting us fouled as much as he does. There's just no answer. Zach Edey continues to impress, continues to look like the runaway player of the year. I know I was talking about Terrence Shannon Jr. looking like the best wing in college basketball right now. And I have to say wing because he can't look like the best player because Zach Edey obviously is that. And Braden Smith, he didn't score a lot in this game, only 2 points. But, man, he was doing a good job of passing it around. 8 assists, only 1 turnover. That's what you want to see. And it just looked like Purdue came out in this game mad, came out. They wanted to prove to everybody that they're better than, what they showed. And, like you said, Sonny, Mackey's on a different level. People don't play well at Mackey because it is just a really, really great arena, and it's very hostile to try and play in. So yeah. All right. Any more thoughts on this game, guys, before we move on?
Nope.
All right. We got 10 seconds left in this Maryland Penn State game, so let's go to one more game, and then I think as we cover this one will probably end up. Wisconsin beats Michigan State 70-57. Guys, it's not looking good in East Lansing right now. The freshmen are not playing well. The big men are not playing well. Tyson Walker is doing everything he can, but there's just not enough in this one. I felt like this was a must-win game for Michigan State. Playing at home, coming off some of the hardships that they've had. They're 4-4 now, entering the conference with a loss. I mean, just a really, really tough game. Wisconsin is not a great team on the road. So you would think, this would be kind of one of those games you would need to get it and make it happen. But Sissoko, Cooper, they're just not very good big men. At least they're not playing very well right now. Sonny, what were some of your thoughts?
If you take a look at Wisconsin's last couple of games, Greg Bard, we're talking a lot about head coaching this episode. Greg Bard has outcoached some of the best coaches in the country.
Yes.
That's just a team that, it's one of the better stories in the Big Ten. AJ Storr, he's the guy the Illini were interested in trying to bring in originally out of high school. He's turned into arguably the best transfer into the conference this year. The Wisconsin team, I didn't have very high expectations for, but it looks like, they're a top half team. Now to Michigan State, we're talking about easily the biggest disappointment of the college basketball season this year. That we've got a lot of frustrated Michigan State fans, talking about how, talent-wise, the talent's all there, but who on Michigan State has gotten better than last year? Maybe one guy, maybe. But outside that, that's kind of it.
Who's that one guy?
Yeah, I don't know. Who is it?
Some people might say Tyson got a little bit better.
I
don't think so.
Tyson's got worse.
No. No.
Okay.
That's why I appreciate it, but maybe.
Okay. But you're saying generally some people might say that. Okay. All right.
Right. Well, exactly. So, for me, like a Tom Izzo team where nobody's getting better, and he's been very vocal of being the Dabo of college basketball in the sense where he doesn't really want to adapt to the transfer portal and this and that. I have concerns about Michigan State moving forward because I don't know if they're going to have a team as talented as this one in the coming years. And, when was the last time a Michigan State Tom Izzo team looked this bad in the middle of December? Not as long as I can remember. And, I'm saying this, but come March, he's going to make an Elite 8 run, and I'm going to eat my words again. But
and what
at least right now,
they're not making it to the tournament. I hate to break it to Spartan fans, but Michigan State's not making it to the tournament. I'm calling it right here. If they keep playing like this, it is going to take a Herculean effort from Tyson Walker. It's going to take A.J. Hoggard to, lift his head up for 2 seconds and start playing like he can actually play. He had 14 points last night, but even that, it was like, AJ, you have got to do more in this game because Sissoko, Akins, and Cooper just combined for 6. There was nobody else in double figures in this game, and I might be being a little too hard on A.J. Hoggard, but there's no life on this team. This team they don't want it. I hate to say it, but they don't look like they want it. And I hate when people say it about Ohio State. You all know I'm an Ohio State fan. But if there's any basketball team that looks soft right now, it's Michigan State. And I hate to be so critical about them, but like you said, Sonny, nobody has improved on this team. The freshmen are not doing anything that is helping this team, it seems like. Fears is okay. I'm not going to say Fears is bad or anything like that. I feel like he's probably been the best freshman out of all of them.
Fears.
Yeah, but that's too much, right? To put all of this on Fears to come in and be this freshman, you have to get more help from your big men. Sissoko and Cooper have got to do more. Cooper played, I said 6. It was actually 7 points. Cooper played 30 minutes and had 3 points. Unacceptable. And I don't know what Tom Izzo has to do. He said after the game that it's all on him. And so if it's all on him, he's got to figure it out. But Burke, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts about this game were it was wild how it's two teams who, my expectations for them have immediately just flipped from where they were in the preseason. Yes. Admittedly, Wisconsin, all season and all preseason, everyone was talking about, they're going to be a sneaky team to watch out for. And I was just like, this Wisconsin team is the same team as last year, who I don't care if they added AJ Storr. He's going to play Wisconsin basketball, and he doesn't have the rest of the pieces around him necessary to play Wisconsin basketball the way that Wisconsin used to play Wisconsin basketball. And it now, just after further review, I'm willing to take those comments back because AJ Storr has changed this team. Just his injection onto this roster, in that game, 8 for 11, 4 for 6 from deep, he was just sensational. If Connor Essegian was able to take the next step, they would be something insane right now. But I mean,
But it's been
AJ Store's
Blackwell,
getting his minutes.
right? Like it's been Blackwell making that happen instead of a Sejan.
Yeah. And then like, yeah, they're just far surpassing what I originally thought. And then Sparty is the exact opposite. I came on this show and I said, hey, I think that Sparty's going to be the one in the Big Ten to make the run. And it's just nine combined points from their front, like their big men in this game. That's downright sad. That's this is Big Ten basketball. That just is not going to suffice, especially if those guys are not hitting their shots. And they aren't coming into these games recently with any of the like expected shooting that we all thought they'd have.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right, and I do want to make sure we're being really hard on Michigan State right now. None of that takes away from Wisconsin. Wisconsin
No.
is playing great this year. AJ Store has been a heck of a improvement, addition, whatever you want to call it. He's been great, and the thing for me against Michigan State, Klesman went 0 for 4. Right after that big game he had against Marquette, he went 0 for 4 in this one. But who picked it up? It was Store. I mean, this Wisconsin team, they have a variety of ways they can beat you, and they have their consistent guys who can make things happen for you. Chucky Hepburn is finally able to play the role that he needs to play, and I think it's really fitting him. He only had 5 points in this game, but he had 8 assists. I mean, he's able to play that role of the point guard that he needs to play, and he's not, being relied upon for everything, kind of like he was at some points last season. So, Sonny,
Yeah,
you have any thought? Or go ahead, Burke.
No, I was just gonna say like that they unless they figure it out in the front court, like 11 offensive rebounds for the Badgers in that game where they scored 19 second chance points. Unless a front court hero is coming off the sideline, which everyone thought Xavier Booker was going to be it, but it's just going to be a rough outing for them unless they can figure something out. I have confidence that Izzo, if anybody, can figure it out, but it's tough sledding right now.
11 offensive rebounds for Wisconsin, 17 total rebounds for Michigan State.
Yeah,
that's
just
speaking of Wisconsin, real quick, like I had their coach as one of the couple guys who I thought was actually going to be in the hot seat coming into this season.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that program was kind of getting a little stale. And now, I mean, I feel like if the season ended today, he'd probably be the front runner for Coach of the Year in the conference.
Chris Collins.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of it's an impressive performance up there in Madison right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, going into the Breslin Center, making that happen. I really thought Michigan State was going to come out with their hair on fire, play hard in this one. And to Tyson Walker's credit, I think he did. But you can't expect Tyson Walker to go out there and get 30 points every single night and drag the team with him. You just can't. And if that is what Michigan State's going to try to do for the rest of the season, it's not going to be pretty. I don't know if they're going to win more than 10 games in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and you especially can't rely on that if he's shooting at the percentage that he is, which is down from last year. And it's tough.
Yeah. So I'm shooting my shot. Michigan State will not make the NCAA tournament.
That's quite a shot. I'm not ready to lose complete faith in them, but
I think there's a better chance they end up in the Sweet 16 than not making.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, dude, I've seen teams I've seen teams like Michigan State teams that are down like in the bottom 4, almost a third into the Big Ten season, come back and grab a bye.
I get what you're saying, but doesn't this one just feel different?
I will say it does that in that regard.
I've just never seen a Michigan State front court just look soft. I've never seen them just not play inspired basketball and wanting to win. I mean, obviously Michigan has not had the best front court sometimes, but like I've just not seen them give the effort that they need to. And I hate to question players' efforts because, you never know what's going on with them personally and stuff like that. But just at least in this situation, Tom Izzo's got to figure something out. He's got to do something to motivate these guys because they just don't look motivated right now. And it's kind of sad to see because Tom Izzo is a great coach, but you're exactly, I think you said it, Burke. He's kind of the Dabo right now of college basketball. Not going in the portal. He's not getting the guys he needs to. It's interesting. So, all right, before we get to the Before we get to the next game, we're going to talk about CBB Analytics. CBB Analytics, college basketball analytics for all of your analytics needs. They help me out to know all the things that I know analytically about college basketball. It's a great resource. They have free stuff that you can figure out as well. They give us a pro tier here at the Big Ten Huddle so that we're able to communicate that kind of information to you and use it. It's just a great resource. They do a lot of really, really cool things. You see a lot of in-depth stats that you don't even get on like KenPom or anything like that. I mean, this is literally the thing that like coaches and GMs in the NBA use. So it's really cool stuff, really interesting. I know the guys over at Boiler Express really like it, and it's really fun. So we're gonna move on to Maryland. Before we do, we have James. I'm a diehard Rutgers fan with all the recruit next year. What's your take? Yes, James. We're gonna talk about the Maryland game, and then we're gonna get into Dylan Harper. Don't worry, we saved that for the end of the show. So let's talk Maryland really fast, and then we'll get to James's Dylan Harper. Maryland wins 81-75 overtime game. It was kind of neck and neck there. It was a tie, not a tie. What was it? 30-28 in the first half, and Maryland comes back and they score more. They have 43-41, and the second half goes to overtime, and Maryland just eventually takes over. And overtime, it was a fun game. It was an interesting game. I feel like Maryland kind of got back a little bit. They scored 40 against Villanova earlier in the season. Now they're scoring 81 against Penn State. Penn State's not a bad defensive team, so it's interesting for them. Burke, what were some of your thoughts on this game?
My thoughts were if they lose at home, like maybe Kevin Willard is looking for a job. But this Maryland team, they are a team that has just fallen far shorter of my expectations than I thought. Like I thought they were going to be a dark horse to contend here, and no, just the way this roster is built, them receiving the full-on Jordan Geronimo experience, like it just hasn't been a solid recipe for victory right now.
Yeah,
it's just tough. It's just tough, man. It's a belabored offense that is hard to watch at times.
And that's kind of my thing with Maryland this season is like the offense just isn't there, but I do appreciate how much effort they're putting into the defensive end. And every single announcer will tell you in the game with Maryland. I think I've heard every single announcer say it at some point in Maryland games. They're like, if they can just get a stop on defense, they can, generate their offense down there. And my thing is like they do get stops on defense. And then the offense doesn't generate. It's one of those things where like you can see them giving a ton of effort on defense and playing really hard. I think they're top 20 in KenPom and defense right now, which you told me at the beginning of the season if they were going to be top 20 in defense and like outside the top 100 in offense, I'd have called you crazy, but that's where they are right now in KenPom. And it's really, really interesting. Sonny, I know you did your podcast, so you weren't able to see all of this, but what were your thoughts from what you did see in Maryland versus Penn State?
Well, I mean, big, high level thoughts is there any basketball team that's more grateful of Michigan State being the story of disappointment of the Big Ten than Maryland? Because, I had all of our dear friends, the Turtleheads on, my show when we were talking about the Illinois Maryland game, and we discussed basketball briefly. And, obviously they were very high on the basketball team. And a lot of people were. I had them, I think, dubbed as fourth, finishing fourth in the conference. I wasn't able to watch much of this game because, again, like JR said, we were recording our episode of Illinicast tonight. But that's just a team which, it's kind of seemed like directionless. It's like, it's like we're really, really trying, but we just can't do it. And, it's kind of a – I don't know what the word is. Like, is it like pity? And they needed this one tonight. Penn State lost to Bucknell, I think.
Bucknell, yeah.
Early in the season.
I think a plus 300 KenPom team right there.
Yeah. They are not a good team. And, the few minutes I watched in the first half, Penn State was up double digits, I think, at one point. So, I was just like, oh, boy. If Maryland loses this game at home, they'd be in trouble. So, for their sake, it's nice to see that, it took overtime, but, just getting that W, they needed it more than, a lot of teams need it.
I feel like Maryland, I feel like Kevin Willard went to the team after this IU game and just basically told them, like, you want to play, you got to play hard, because they played 10 guys in their, or not, they played 8 guys for 7 minutes or more in their game against IU. They played 7 guys against Penn State tonight. I mean, for an overtime game of playing 7 guys, like, that's kind of crazy. And Jahmir Young and Julian Reese just basically dragged this team to the end zone and said, "You're coming with us. We're not going to lose this game for all the mistakes that you guys make." And yes, Geronimo had a good game defensively, and he was all over the place. But for as many mistakes as you guys make, Jahmir Young and Julian Reese just basically said, "You're coming with us. We're going to win this game. Get out of the way." Is basically what happened. I think they both had over 20. I think Jahmir Young had 28. So just a crazy, crazy performance by the two of them, and so much heart, so much effort. We talk about Michigan State, their struggles being, maybe they're not trying hard enough, or maybe they don't have that dog in them or something like that. That's not the case with Julian Reese and Jahmir Young. They want to win. They want to make it happen. Burke, you have any thoughts on some of these supporting players like DHS and Scott, and like I mentioned, Geronimo, good defender, but really not producing on the offensive end like he needs to?
I mean, Jordan Geronimo, he's the one I know the most about, just because the raw potential that you thought was there for his entire tenure at Indiana just was always so frustrating to see it not just come to fruition. I mean, he was good for those nights where he goes 6 for 6, like in one or a few games a season. He gave Maryland the game before they played the Hoosiers, but
yeah.
And then as for, I mean, other than that, Deshaun Harris Smith, like the Maryland fans listening to the Turtleheads podcast, because I do give those guys a listen. It's nice to get an insight into what's going on over there, and it just seems like he has fallen short of every single, possibly too high of expectation that those fans had for him.
Well, and the expectation was that Jahmir Young wouldn't have to do it all by himself.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was like, oh, yes, DHS is here. He's going to help us out. He's going to give us what we need. And Jahmir Young's going to feel like, maybe he doesn't have to do as much. And then I feel like tonight he just basically reverted back and said, if you're going to make me do it all by myself, I will. I mean, he had 6 turnovers in that game, so you don't want to see that, 3 assists to 6 turnovers. But it felt like he had to. It felt like that was what he had to do to win this game. So, Sonny, you have any more additional thoughts on this game before we move on?
No, not really. Again, I wasn't really able to watch, so.
Gotcha. I will point out Clary and Baldwin, big game from them tonight. Wahab, had his normal 9+ rebounds. He had 9 in this game. So I think there's a lot, kind of like I've said in other episodes, I think there's a lot to look forward to with Penn State. I think Mike Rose is a good coach. He just kind of has to get his guys in there and start making that happen. So, all right, let's go ahead and talk about Dylan Harper commits to Rutgers. This is a huge commitment, guys, especially with Ace Bailey. Also, I think his high school teammate, right? I mean, just being able to recruit him, get him there, that kind of stuff. I mean, just a huge situation for Rutgers on the up and up right now. The basketball team, not really as much. They lost to Wake Forest tonight, and that wasn't exactly pretty. But, I mean, this is a really good thing. Steve Peichel was looking like, a really good recruiter in this situation. So, Burke, let's go to you first. Are you concerned with this addition and the addition of Ace Bailey? Are you concerned with facing Rutgers in the future in the Big Ten?
No, because those guys are not going to be here long enough to become like the true crazy threats that they could possibly be if they spent 4 years there. But I am like, this is awesome. This is awesome for Rutgers.
Yeah,
like they are a fan base who deserves some excitement like this, something to supercharge their program. And I mean, it's going to be exciting. Those are 2 of the top 3 guys of the class. That's a hell of a class. Like
24/7, they're the top 2.
Like right now, they are playing the basketball on par with, I would say, the Maryland team right now. And just having a future, man, can be so exciting. It can keep a fan base going. And I am excited to see a bunch of ludicrous Rutgers fans next year. Of course, like, hey, they've gotten the better of us in the rack time, like far more times than I would have liked, but it's still just two freshmen isn't enough to make me fear you, especially when we'll have a third year Malik Renew. We'll have hopefully Liam McNeely and Derek Queen coming in. But we'll have our pieces. We'll have established pieces. Rutgers will as well. But if those guys came here, they're going to be given more than their fair share of time. And yeah, just good and bad for the Rutgers program. So I don't feel any way about it, really.
Well, I'm there with you. You know, he's not going to last long, but I think what this does for Rutgers fans more than anything is it gives you excitement about Steve Peichel just in general with his recruiting and bringing in talent, because Rutgers has been good lately, but they've not had like that star, right, that fans can kind of rally behind. You know, McCulhey and Cam Spencer, those guys, I mean, those were really good players, but they're not like the NBA level star that you can kind of rally behind. Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, they give you that, especially coming in together. I mean, Dylan Harper is 6'6", a combo guard. I mean, that's an NBA size guy who's going to, whether it's 1 year, two, however long he's there for, you're going to really be able to rally behind that guy and really be able to look at your team in a different light. So you're not just like the raw defensive team, but you have more talent there that you can get behind. And I think that's really empowering for a fan base and really empowering for a team as well. Sonny, what are some of your thoughts about this team with Dylan Harper going forward?
I mean, I think they can be very good next year just because I hold Peichel in very high regard. I think he's legit one of the best coaches in the conference. And obviously, you know, with Harper and Bailey, there's a lot of exciting times coming to the Rutgers, but with excitement comes expectations.
Right.
And next year, you know, there's going to be a lot of kids that are going to be watching Bailey and Harper, and you know, the pressure is going to be on Peichel to develop these guys into one and done lottery players, because if they're not, you know, the 2026, you know, second rated player in New Jersey is going to see what happened to Harper and it's like, you know what, if I go to Duke, you know, I know I'm going to be a top 5 pick. You know, if you know Harper struggles a little bit or has to stay for year 2 or he falls out of the lottery, that's going to bring a lot of baggage to Rutgers in the future. So, you know, I mean, it's exciting times, but at the same time, Peichel's got to do the best coaching job he can, trying to balance team success next year with, you know, getting these two guys ready for that next level.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're kind of seeing it a little bit with Maryland right now with Deshaun Harris-Smith, right? A top 30 recruit in the class last year, and he's not playing like it. And I hate to say that because we just gave Maryland their flowers with Jahmir Young and Julian Reese, but you have to have him come in and produce early. Doesn't mean he has to be the star of the Big Ten, but he has to be able to come in and produce early because, you know, there could be some bad, you know, thoughts based on expectations if he's not able to do that. Burke, what are some of your thoughts about the expectations of the team going forward?
I just wanted to build on what Sonny was talking about just with Peichel and how he is a great coach. He is a great coach, but it's going to be a truly different test of his coaching abilities because he's always been able to take lesser talent, play them up and almost seemingly simultaneously drag down the opposition's talent. And like that's where his bread and butter is. That's where he's made his money. And now that he has the talent, it's going to be an interesting season to watch how he coaches that talent, because you don't have to you don't have to play the dirty ball when you got hoopers like that.
Right. So are we? I know Peichel just signed, you know, an extension recently. I think it goes through 31 or something like that. I think it's like a $15 million buyout. So, you know, that's high, right? Especially for a basketball coach. But are we concerned about Peichel's future possibly getting poached by another program if he shows that he's able to, you know, get these recruits and if he's able to send them off to the NBA? Are we concerned about a possible, you know, larger school coming in and maybe trying to pay him more money, pay that buyout and get him out of there? Sonny, you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's hard to tell with the way the college landscape changes next year. Like, yeah, it's Rutgers, but it's also going to be a Big Ten job. And so Rutgers is going to have a lot more money. Yeah, I'm not talking about, like, if Tennessee has another early exit this year, they may be looking to move on from Barnes. Well, actually, Tennessee's not a good example. They're SEC, but there's other programs that may be held on a higher regard when it comes to basketball, but they don't have that $80 million coming in like Rutgers will have in this TV media deal. So
Right.
my thinking is, will he be a target? Yes. Should he be a target? Yes. But if I'm Peichel at the same time, that New Jersey area, New York City's right there. They churn out a lot of talent from that area. And if he's got a gig, I mean, let's be honest, it's Rutgers. It's one of those situations where if he can make a tournament every year, those are the expectations. Next year they're going to be entering the season ranked. And from what I read, I think it's like the fourth time in like 30 years that they're going to have a preseason ranking. The expectations are really low up in New Jersey. So, for someone like Peichel, he might just be in the right spot. But if I'm a program who's looking to, make a change as a head coach, he's one of the first guys I at least give a phone call to.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially, being able to recruit. I think Bailey is like from Georgia or something like that. Being able to recruit a kid down from Georgia up to New Jersey. Obviously Harper's from New Jersey, so kind of the hometown kid. That's a good way to get him in there. But even Ace Bailey was kind of recruiting Dylan Harper to go there. I mean, that's a huge thing. Burke, you have any thoughts on Steve Pikiel's future and whether he'll be with Rutgers long term?
I mean, I think this bought him a hell of a whole lot of time. Like it did, for that program to land these two guys, that is a monumental feat. That is a
They're not getting rid of him
monumental
anytime
feather
soon.
in his cap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like so I mean he could just have one of those forever jobs if he plays this all right. And like Sonny said, why go elsewhere? We don't know how this is all going to shake out. It might just be the Big 10, the SEC, the Big 12, and then nobody else matters whatsoever. We don't know how all this shakes out in a few years.
It's kind of like, what if the Illinois or Indiana job opened up? And we have the money, we have the fan base to go after and give Peichel a raise. But the expectations reset if Peichel's one of our coaches. We want to be competing for Sweet 16s, Final Fours every single year. And that's something like the folks that, we're Rutgers fans, really, they're just happy to be competing. So, as we're kind of talking about, he's got a good gig right now. So I don't know if he wants to change that up at all.
Yeah. Don't bite the hand.
Right. Yeah, no, I think you guys are right. I think it also comes with, what is the program's expectations, because Rutgers has not been, the expectations of a UConn or a Kentucky or anything like that. Obviously, not saying that, if anything happens to those guys, they're going to come calling for Peichel. I don't think Kentucky would become calling for Peichel. But, it's one of those situations where if you can really get a good run and you can make this happen, you can be there for a while. And I think you guys make a good point. The money in the Big Ten is nice right now. I mean, if this really does come into like a Power 2 situation to where the Big Ten and the SEC are kind of above everyone else and making these things happen, Steve Peichel, he's going to have a lot of reasons to stay at Rutgers.
Got a couple million reasons to stay at Rutgers.
Exactly.
Got a couple tens of millions of reasons. Yeah.
Exactly. And if he's, I think it gets underrated, especially with basketball coaches. I think it happens more with basketball coaches where, like, when you find a school that you can be integrated in, that your family's happy at, that you're in an area that you like and you enjoy, that seems to be more of a bigger deal for basketball coaches than it is football coaches. And so I think at the end of the day, Rutgers could find their long-term coach right here if they just keep him happy and they do pay him well. I don't know. I don't think I see Rutgers, or not Rutgers. I don't think I see Peichel leaving Rutgers anytime soon, even if the money or the job is better somewhere else. I think they got their guy for the long haul if they want him. So
yeah, I'd feel good about it if I were them.
yeah, especially if you can keep recruiting like this as well.
Yeah.
So. All right. Any more thoughts on Peichel or Dylan Harper or anything like that, guys?
No. Hey, Dylan, don't even think for a second any of the Indiana fans fell for your troll, like deleting posts and posting new ones. Like, don't even think about it. You didn't get us, dude. We can't get got like that.
Trust me, I'm an Ohio State fan. I'm living through J.J. Smith right now, the wide receiver that's visiting Florida State and everywhere else. So
Yeah.
it's a fun life when.
Yeah, it's a fun game they play sometimes.
Yeah. So. All right, hey guys, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate all of you listening. Hope you enjoy the basketball games this weekend. We're going to have another basketball episode on Sunday. We're going to kind of get into the basketball rhythm right now. The bowl season's happening for football right now. There's kind of a dead period. There's a lot of talk about the transfer portal, but there's only so much we can say because at the end of the day, nobody really knows what's going on with that. So we're going to do basketball episodes more often here going forward. But do go check out over on the community page in the YouTube. I put the schedule for the rest of the year, or not the rest. I guess it is the rest of the year because it's December in there, so you can know when basketball episodes are and when football episodes are. So, anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you to Sonny and Burke for being here. Have a great night, guys.